Hi, Anti-Society. Welcome back to the Antisocial Planet. Today we are finally finishing Seventeen's 17th Heaven album with part 2. We don't need to talk about how long it took me to get here, okay? The point is that I am here now, and we're finishing it, okay? Did I have to rewatch my own video to remember what I said? That's neither here nor there. But I am excited to finally get into this. I'm a little bit under the weather at the moment, so I feel like it's the perfect time for me to come back to this album, to get some more 17 in my life, and this album in particular seems to be leaning towards this feeling of comforting fans, being a safe place for them. That being said, I'm a little bit nervous going into this because the first song is not only called Monster, it's a hip-hop team song. Now, I am a hip-hop team bias, so I'm already sensing alarm bells with that, but the title Monster also makes me unsure of what I'm about to wander into. So perhaps we'll be changing up the vibe a little bit, but consider it my repentance for it taking me so long to get to this, that I am going to suffer greatly with the very first song of this reaction. Let's just get into it. I am definitely sending at the SOS for this song. Also, I don't know why we decided to wear glasses and not tell Wanu, but I'm sorry that I'm inadvertently part of that. They're not sunglasses, but the only one who's like always wearing glasses, and like the one time he doesn't do it, y'all are gonna pull this kind of stunt, honestly. Maybe I'm just procrastinating because this song does legitimately scare me. I hope that we're in the vein of the rest of the album, which is like a, hey, let 17 be like the comfort for you in times where you're having like a rough go or stuff is going on that's overwhelming you. Come to 17 and their music to help comfort you through that. Is that what's gonna happen? I don't know. Monster is a very scary title to just put out there in the world. All right, fine. Okay. Interesting synth decision. That like doorbell? Did someone whistle at me? Why is it giving Scooby-Doo? Why is it giving Halloween? Why is it giving, I guess like Monster, but like why is it giving that vibe? That's a nasty beat to put on this.
Where my goblins, where my Dracula's, this the anthem. Throw your claws up, stay the indoor too, stay the indoor. Hit the jackpot, this a trick or treat tour.
Not you saying this is a trick or treat tour, and I was like, it's giving Halloween. Are we the monsters? Is that what we're doing? I was thinking, what could monster mean, especially in the context of this album? And could it be like, hey, people are going to label us with all of these different negative things. They're gonna make us the monster. They're gonna make us the bad guys because 17 is successful and fans support them and trying to paint them negative light to justify not treating them well. And then being like, okay, fine, you want me to be the monster? Let's be the monster. Is that what we're doing? Because I don't know if I could take that vibe. This is a nasty, nasty production beat. Like,
Where my goblins, where my Dracula's, this the anthem. Throw your claws up, stay the indoor too, stay the indoor. Hit the jackpot, this a trick or treat tour. 요즘 봄 펌핑 마치 rockin'. 네가 노는 몰 그 안에 난 quackin'. 소리 질러, 양팔 이리 저리 회색 thriller.
I'm sorry, we already had the doorbell and then we're like trick or treat, right? That's cute, right? The ring the doorbell and then you say trick or treat. Not you actually putting a scream into the production of this. When I said the production on this is nasty, what the actual heck is happening? Especially the like Franken and then whoa, like that like back and forth. I'm gonna need several moments with this song, and I knew I was in danger. I knew the moment I was like, hip hop team, I'm in danger. No, not if this is the vibe that we're going with. The water you play in, crack it inside, like.
펌핑 마치 rockin'. 네가 노는 몰 그 안에 난 quackin'. 소리 질러, 양팔 이리 저리 회색 thriller. 사람들은 다 웅성웅성해 너들 대체 뭔데.
Ooh, that distortion.
얼마나 전락한다고 떠들썩해. Pull up in the all black roster. 지금 나의 삶은 사치 pop star. 못 믿겠어 놀러 와봐 concert. 모두 널 부르잖아 monster.
Ooh, I know we're getting to the drop. I know I'm interrupting. But I love the distortion there on Minkyu's part. The cadence is really fun too. This play almost like sing-song. This fits. Okay, not only am I going to be putting this in my playlist for around spook season, because I feel like it's a need, but that playlist specifically is for what I have deemed the genre of demonic circus. It's a very specific sound, and that is what this song is giving me. It's giving demonic circus. It's giving that, again, that vibe of they want to make me the monster. Okay, like there's a lot of noise about how well it's going, like people like chattering and saying, oh, they're doing so well or whatever, why are they so successful? It has that feeling of like, why have they reached these heights? People talking, they'll be like, okay, come to a concert and I'll show you. Like this idea of, you want to find out why I'm so successful, come to a show. You're gonna see why I deserve to be here. And again, this vibe of, you want to make me the monster? Okay, I'll be the monster. Like that. No, I cannot do that kind of vibe. I can't do that kind of confidence, that kind of playfulness too. There's this cheekiness to the overall vibe because it has, we're talking about like Dracula and goblins and like krakens and like thriller and trick-or-treating and this like fun, almost like sing-song nursery rhyme kind of cadence here in Mingyu's part of them kind of having fun with it of, okay, fine, let's do that.
Pull up in the all-black roster. Second night, I'm such a pop star. 몸 믿겠어, 놀러 와봐 concert. Monster.
That like whistle?
Bottle like a monster, bottom to the top still. Sunglass, they gon' that's a bounce down. Party like a rock star, every day, super dead.
Not us calling out, not us talking about Busan and Daegu, okay? It's just, especially with S-Scoops. But that is such a fun chorus of just like letting it play out, especially the Nas, right? Like it's a fun interactive thing, right? I feel like this song is not just them being like, okay, we're like, everyone's gonna call me a monster, everyone's gonna make me that. And like two meanings to that, right? You can call someone a monster in terms of having a negative connotation, but also like a monster in terms of someone who is so talented, is so good at what they do, is so intimidating in their field, right? That no one wants to go up against them, right? Like no one wants to compete with them because they're a monster, right? So having that double meaning there, and again, like this idea of, okay, you want to make me the monster, I'll be the monster. You want me to be the bad guy? Let's go a few rounds and see how well you keep up, right? Like it has that vibe, but also like them being like, hey, come to a concert, see what we're made of. Don't just sit off and have all these opinions without actually knowing who we are and what we do. But it also has this feeling of inviting in the fans. Again, like this whole album feels like them just being in their bubble with their fans and saying like, where are my goblins? At the beginning of saying, hey, if they're gonna label all of us, including like the group of 17 and like Carrots along with them, they're gonna say that we're the monster, if they're gonna say that we're the bad guy, we're gonna show them what we're capable of. So having this very easy to sing along part in the chorus means that you can have a whole concert of people singing along. But also the na is like a little bit of a teasing thing, right? It's a little bit of a like neener feeling to it. So it has again that cheekiness, that playfulness, kind of leading into some of these almost like childlike vibes with the like different monsters that they're bringing up and the like, nursery rhyme feelings, and then that having like little na-na-nas coming through of them almost like having that playfulness, but also saying this is childish that you're saying all of these things, having that like double meaning of, okay, I'm gonna meet you at your level and I'm gonna talk to you like you're a child because that's how you're behaving, right? There's so many different things to this very simple setup of the actual like lyrical content that I love, but also like Mingyu's cadence. He has so much, like him talking about bounce, but like he has so much bounce to the way that he performs, like this swagger to the way that he chooses his cadence that I think just fits so well with this. I like the bottom to the top star. That pause, the echo. No, bring it in. S-Scoops, sir. We already had whispering in Cheers, okay? We've done the whispering thing. You can't be like that, okay? You can't be whispering in my ear, especially with pulling out a bunch of the production. And I love having S-Scoop's delivery there in contrast to Mingyu's, because like I was saying, Mingyu has this kind of laid back swagger bounce to the way that he usually chooses his cadence, right? And then having S-Scoops come in with a bit more grit, a bit more aggression to the way that he's delivering his lines, pulling in a bunch of the production. It's a great contrast of those two things, of having someone who's laid back and being like, hey, I'm bottom to the top star, saying I'm a rock star, like all of those things. And then having S-Scoops come in and be like, hey, if you're gonna pick a fight, best know who you're dealing with. Even though like my forum is like a zombie of saying almost like unstoppable and like single-minded in its pursuit, right? Being like, hey, we're not going to let anything get in the way of us going after what we want. And then lower your head of being like, Don't, this isn't a fight you can win. You don't need to whisper at me, sir. Unnecessary.
Party like a rock star every day 싶은데 나 쳐 내 봄을 대고 찍고 부산 가는 좀비 고개를 숙여 바운스 타운 밤낮 없이 정신없이 널 이렇게 만든 범인 찾아봐도 이미 난 떠나고 없어 거기
Especially the like, I'm not even there. You're whispering.
잘 나가면 얼마나 잘 나간다고 떠들썩해 Pull up in the all black roster 지금 나의 삶은 사치 popstar 못 믿겠어 놀러 와봐 concert 모두 널 부르잖아 monster
The production is crazy on this. That's wild. It's wild that they have the doorbell, and I love that we have that ending coming in at the beginning, but also ending it again, going to the trick-or-treat thing, but also this feeling of you think you can get rid of me with these like your words or whatever. Hey, like knocking on the door, like ringing the doorbell, being like, you can't get rid of me that easily. That's not how this is gonna work. And the like whistle that's almost in it, of not only is it like a cool thing, it's a little bit like unsettling in the production because of the way that they pull out some of the elements around it, but also it's like this like almost like whistling to get someone's attention, to be like, hey, I'm still here, like you didn't get rid of me. And like all the different like monster images like coming through of the different ways that the different angles that they're bringing that in. I both simultaneously need to see a live performance and to never see a live performance. Part of me is this live is probably like a lot of fun, the vibe that they would have in it, but my mental health is saying no, this album is supposed to help with mental health. We established that with SOS, and I don't think that me seeing a live performance would be good for me. Dang, okay, no, fine, sure. Starting off strong with the confidence. The production though, the production team is so good. Now, just before we get into this, I just want to say that I scrolled into the comments of the last song, Monster, and it says that the first like pre-chorus, that little almost like nursery rhyme sound, is actually S-scoops instead of Mingyu. I think the next one is actually Mingyu. It's a little bit tricky with the distortion, but going back and listening to it, it does sound more like S-scoops. So I just want to acknowledge that in the video. I'll probably put a note when I edit this, but not everybody reads the screen apparently, because people like to tell me stuff that I already put little notes about in the video. They're like, actually, I'm like, I know, I put it in the video. Anyway, rant over. Vocal team. Now this, I feel like we usually go sentimental with vocal team. They usually hit me with all of the vocal talent that they have in the like sweetest, most sentimental way that they possibly can. I don't know what yawn means. Like again, like yawn being like tired or dreamy maybe. It could be like letting us rest. Because we've gone through this whole album of starting with SOS and then going into God of Music, of them being like, hey, I understand that you're going through a tough time and you're like coming to us for comfort in that music, and they're celebrating being with their fans and getting through things and saying that we're always going to be a constant that you can rely on, and going into the other units of it still having that vibe of we're going to band together and take care of each other between the group members but also with their fans. And this could be maybe getting to the end of saying, hey, it's okay to be tired and to need a rest or whatever. I don't know. I just know it's gonna wreck me. I can feel it already. Oh yeah. No, if we're having piano. And guitar, acoustic. No, it's fine.
지나가는 달 위로 멀어지는 공기가 언제 이렇게 차가워졌나 이젠 정말 잊어야 하나 봐 연습한다 해도 안 되겠지 그야 전부였는 걸 동동 구른 발 걸음 나에 대한 낙서만 가득한 맘속에 적어둔 부탁이 있어
Okay. I know we're gonna be getting into some stuff. I get it. But the way that they're having these little accents of like guitar at the end of different lines, I also love the way that not only are they lightening up their voices to be super breathy, but they're also putting like space in between the phrases, right? When you have a very breathy delivery, I feel like it's more likely that the vocal melody, like the words and phrases, are going to blend a lot more together because you have all that breath that's connecting all of it. So it gives you like a little bit more of this legato delivery to the way that you're going about the vocal melodies. But in this one, they're very specifically letting that air run out and leaving space in between the different words, which adds this great vulnerability, right? This almost inability to fully articulate all of the complexities of what you're feeling. And even going into DK's line of him talking about like writing something down and having these, I love the like scribbles of myself is such a like beautiful image, sad, but like beautiful, of saying that it's this chaos to it, this kind of, heart full of scribbles about myself, of having all these kind of rushed, disconnected notes that like together piece together who you are and what you're feeling and how you've ended up at this point. So I love having this space in between the different phrases and letting there be this kind of break in the melodies as this way of communicating this emotion.
적어둔 부탁이 있어 날 미워하지 마 좋은 선택이었단 걸 너도 알잖아 그렇게 아픈 걸 말도 못하고 혼자 끙끙댔을걸 내가 뭐래 네가 없잖아 넌 나의 숨이니까 미안해 하지마 그저 모자라 맨날 오는 아픔 같은 거야.
Okay, first off, the vocals are vocaling, but also this "you are my breath" and it's like it's just a yawn. I was wondering what yawn was going to be in terms of the imagery, and like this "I don't hate you," it's like I probably couldn't even say how much it hurt. Again, this inability to articulate what you're feeling, and it coming out is this breath, even them having this breathier delivery in it. If it's just like a yawn of almost, I don't know, covering it up or saying I can't like commit to actually saying something, or it's almost like you're going to say something and then you have to like cover it up in some way and be like, I can't actually articulate what I'm feeling. Seungkwan's voice on a ballad, because he has this like smoky vibe to his voice, like the texture, the tone that he has, that it just like, it draws me in every time that he sings ballad.
적어둔 부탁이 있어 날 미워하지 마 좋은 선택이었단 걸 너도 알잖아 그렇게 아픈 걸 말도 못하고 혼자 끙끙댔을걸 내가 뭐래 네가 없잖아 넌 나의 숨이
Like vibrato there too.
미안해 하지마 그저 모자라
The change of cadence there too, even the like don't be sorry of like I, even before they're saying like I don't hate you, like it was a good choice, like I understand that what has happened to cause me to hurt the way that I do. I'm not entirely sure what the situation is that we're talking about, because I can interpret it in a few different ways, so I'm gonna hold off until I get some more lyrics. But this idea of whatever has happened is for the better, or it's understandable of like how we ended up in this situation, so don't be sorry. I can also interpret Yawn that way, of it's almost like this involuntary thing, right? Of it's something that just happens, right? Like, I feel like the more that I talk about it, the more likely I am to just yawn at some point during this reaction, right? It's just a thing that happens involuntarily. It's just like your body reacting to being tired, being exhausted, and saying, hey, the fact that I'm feeling this pain, the fact that I'm reacting the way that I am, that I'm hurt in the way that I am, doesn't mean that this is like me blaming you. That doesn't mean that this is me saying that this is a bad thing that has happened necessarily. It's just a natural reaction to the way that my body is feeling, to the way that I am experiencing this moment, even though like logically I can understand what's happening and that it's just part of the process of going through what I'm feeling. I mean, gorgeous, the guitars. I love letting this moment breathe too.
걸음 나에 대한 낙서만 가득한 맘 중에 그려
When he dug into his voice there. Oh, the layered vocals coming in. Okay, like the guitar coming, but also like the way that DK is lightening up his voice there and like having so much breath, like that's usually not his delivery. He usually has a ton of closure in his voice. So him having that lighter delivery is like a very deliberate choice here. And again, it's making the words softer, it's making them less tangible, it's making them less articulated. I feel like Seungkwan and DK are really good about having like really precise diction in the way that they're performing, especially DK. I think it goes back to just some of that musical kind of background that he has, that having like really precise diction is just part of that training, that background. And so him like having some of that articulation lost in his delivery for the sake of emotion, for the sake of the character of his voice, is a very specific decision. And I'm pointing it out because it isn't something that naturally fits, I think, in his voice, which means it is something that he has put the work in to get that kind of delivery. But I was also thinking of Junghan and like Joshua having more of a softer tone to their voices overall, usually, that they just sit so well into this song. Like it just fits the delicate nature of their voices and that kind of like breathy, almost like pulling someone in, right, to this kind of like quiet, sincere moment. But I also, okay, like in terms of what the song is about, because we didn't get really like another verse, we got the repeating of the chorus just before we get into the end of the song. I feel like my interpretation could be a few different things. It could be like actually having someone who has hurt you in some way, or like you're separated from them in some way. But I feel like it could also be a relationship with yourself, just within the context of the album, right? Because we're talking about like scribbled notes and like going through those notes, finding like a favor that is written down, right? So that is like referring to something like within themselves. And given the album of this being about almost like an internal struggle of harkening back to SOS, of being like, hey, when you're struggling with something and there are all these things happening in the world that overwhelm you, turning to music as a way of helping cope with that and helping find comfort for a little while. And this almost feels like a forgiving oneself for not always being your best self, finding that kind of like self-love of being able to forgive yourself, of saying, hey, I understand that you made the best choices that you could think of in the moment. I understand that this is hurting. You don't have to be sorry for struggling with mental health things or going through a particularly tough time in your life. That's something that you can struggle through, and find compassion and forgiveness for yourself. It could also be, again, with someone else. If you have a friend, if you have a loved one, if you have someone that you're close to who is struggling and going through a tough time, if they're struggling with mental health or they're going through a particularly difficult time, they're not always going to be there for you, right? They're going to make mistakes. They're going to do things that are out of character. They're going to not show up the way that they would before. And this song almost feels like a leaving space for that, to be like, you don't have to be sorry. Like, I understand that this is something that you were struggling with, that you made the best choice that you could in that moment. And maybe I got hurt in the process. Maybe there's like a mutual kind of acknowledgement that there can be hurt feelings on both sides. There can be struggling on both sides, but it doesn't mean that this has to be something that kind of falls apart, right? Maybe, I don't know. I'm just throwing things out, seeing what sticks. I love the like electric guitar coming in after all the acoustic. I love this, like, more strings coming in. Feels very OST. Oh, that delivery. I hear those super high vocals. Wow. Gorgeous. Like I was saying, like it has this scale of an OST, but also I like that we started with Joshua, we end with Joshua, right? Almost having this like cyclical moment, bookending both sides of it. I could also say Yawn is this idea of like almost putting something to rest, right? If there is this whatever conflict that's happening, whether it's like an interpersonal one or with someone else who may have been struggling or going through something. I'd be interested to see maybe if there is, I'm assuming they've talked about this song and what kind of the intent behind it was, to see more of what they're trying to get at, because it felt like more of a like feeling, but it has this very strong feeling of like forgiveness and like acknowledging hurt feelings, but also saying you don't have to be sorry. I understand that was like what you thought was the best choice, whatever that choice may be. And again, whether that's like a personal thing or just someone else, but like this being the last line and then we just let it play out. I also love that we have lots of instrumental kind of space in this, of these kind of quiet moments of, again, like letting there be emotion through that instrumentation, through the music, instead of having words be part of it, especially since it feels like a lot of this is about not being able to fully articulate the feeling that you're having, letting the music take over for that instead. It's such a gorgeous song, such a beautiful vocal delivery from all of them. I also love that even some of the kind of powerhouses in the vocal line are pulling back. Very important aspect of the storytelling is like them being able to pull us in closer to this. And I think that having the softer tone really does that. I loved that Uzi got this like vocalization on that like repeating of Yawn, and just like the way that he was elongating some of the vowels and then having those more chopped off consonants in it as well. It was like a beautiful way of, I don't know, bringing us back in to the vocals to end off the song. This song's gonna linger in my brain. It's one of those gorgeous songs that like it's just gonna sit in a place in my brain of not fully knowing what to do about it. I'm sad, but also there's this strange reassurance and like forgiveness within it that just, I don't know. I just feel like strangely grounded after it, and I don't know what to do with that information. I just kind of looked through some of the comments on this, and nothing is like specific about, hey, here's like an explanation of specifically what the song is about. But I just want to say that I acknowledge that I know what was going on when this song came out and the context of the time that this came out. And I know that it was a very sad time, specifically with some of the members. And like I said in part 1 of this album about watching their acceptance speech when they won an award around the time that this album came out, and the things that they decided to talk about in that is much about like loss and loving somebody. And I'm not going to cry about it. I'm not going to cry about thinking about it again. Me saying I definitely cried listening to the speech and like understanding that there is a lot of like pain and loss and struggles that members of this group are going through, and having someone like Sungkwan on this track, I think is very pointed about that. And they have definitely written songs before that are specifically about things that the members have gone through in terms of loss and grief and trying to find peace with the fact that a tragedy has happened in somebody's life. So I think that may also be part of what's going on in the song. I don't know if that is for sure. I just want to like state my piece in this, and perhaps going through some of the behind the scenes or reading comments on this later, I'll have more context for that. So I was actually going to do headliner on this reaction as well, but I have waited so long to get to this that there's actually a special video. So I'm going to do that on its own. It's going to be like a little bit easier in terms of being able to go through the song and then make sure that I see the video for it, which means that this reaction is like a little bit of a whiplash moment because I feel like Monster and Yawn are like very drastically different vibes, but I feel like it is this very interesting progression so far with the album. I don't want to fully have my thoughts because if we do have one more song, I know that might cap off some of the story, but this idea of telling someone that they think they need your help with SOS, right? That you're going to be there for them and you're going to be able to help them through something. And then progressing through the album where it's connecting through music, connecting through being with their fans. With Karis, we have Diamond Days, right? And then like back to back of being like, we're going to watch out for each other. And then Monster being this confidence of people can say whatever they want about us. They can use whatever terms they want and paint us in a certain light, and we can just embrace that and be confident and be there to support each other and to just let ourselves exist happily and authentically without letting other people's kind of input dictate how that's going to be. And then Yawn being this almost this like forgiveness, this acceptance of like someone struggling, and I'm not gonna cry. Again, knowing some of the context of that when this song came out, this album came out, but almost finding this place of forgiving someone for struggling, forgiving someone, or not even like forgiving, because that makes it sound like they've done something wrong, but acknowledging that it is okay to struggle and acknowledging that mental health things happen and people go through tough situations in their life, and you're not always going to be like the best friend. You're not always going to be the best family member, parent, group member, right? You're not always going to be at your absolute best. You're going to have times where you struggle and you're going to have a rough time. And having this kind of space to say, that's okay. You made the best choices you could in that moment. And I'm not gonna cry. I am gonna cry. It's fine. But saying, I acknowledge that, and I acknowledge that is okay, and that you don't need to be sorry for struggling, and it's okay to be hurt, whether that is because you're someone struggling or because you care about somebody who's struggling. Holding space for both of those experiences, which I feel like doesn't get talked about a whole lot in the discussion of like mental health, of what it is like to watch someone you care about struggle with that. I say that as somebody who has mental health things, but I've also, not gonna cry, but I've lost people because of mental health things, and that is not something that I feel like is talked about a whole lot or acknowledged in the conversation of that. It's also a struggle, and it's also painful, and it can feel powerless. And just having a song that is like acknowledging that at the end of this whole album, of saying, hey, if you're struggling, talk to me. I'm going to be here. I'm going to support you. But also holding space to be like, sometimes you have to accept that the only thing that you can do is be there, right? Like, you can't fix the problem sometimes. And I think that's beautiful, and it's a beautiful song. And I love that it has so much space with the instrumentation, and pulling back some of the lyrics, of letting the instrumentation be that emotion, be that kind of presence of feeling something along with someone, and not letting words clutter that space, of just letting there be breathing room in that song. And I will most definitely cannot watch a live performance of that, because I feel like it will wreck me. I feel like I will just be incapable of living through that. It's a little bit of a bummer to end this off on, but I'm glad to come back to this and kind of finish off this album finally. And with the exception of Headliner, I'll come back. I promise. I'm not going to be gone for months and months and months. I will come back to that soon. But let me know all of your thoughts down in the comments, and other things that I should be checking out with this comeback before I move on to the next one. And I hope you enjoyed listening to that along with me. You can click this place to go to my previous reactions, or you can subscribe so you miss next time I post a 17 reaction. I will see you in the next video. Bye.